Good afternoon and welcome to the National Seminar on Research Prospects in English Studies, organized by Department of English, affiliated to Maharaja Krishna Kumar Singh Ji, Bhavnagar University. I welcome our Honorable Chairperson, Principal Dr. Hasmukh Patel, Principal of Government Arts College of Garyathai. And I would like to welcome all presenters and attendees as well. We are delighted to have you all here today to join us in this important and insightful event. We hope that this seminar will provide a valuable platform for exchange of ideas and knowledge among all the participants. Before moving to the presentations, I would like to drag your attention to some important notes. Because of the shortage of the time, all presenters are kindly requested to wind up their respective presentations within 10 minutes so that the given time can be managed. And I kindly request all those presenters to submit their valuable presentations through email. Now, for the first presentation, I would like to invite Mr. Jai Jivani to present his ideas. Please, sir.
Good afternoon, one and all. My name is Jai Jivani. I work with Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, and I'm thankful to the department for accepting my paper. What I'll be doing is I will be quickly looking at the paper of translation studies which I have written. My paper is basically looks after the area of two areas. One is cultural studies as well as second is translation studies. What I have done is it's Folktales by Zawarchand Meghani. It's known as Surati Bahar Vidya. Though the language is Gujarati, there it's written full of dialects. And what I've done is I have a self-translation. It's basically an adaptation. So I picked up two short stories written on Jogidash Kumar. I wrote the adaptation of it, and what I did is I did a critical analysis in terms of one of the approaches you look at while doing a translation studies or when you are working in the field of translation studies. It's process-based approach. What do we mean by process-based approach is when you are translating, you look after why do you particularly pick up the word, or when you are facing the question of untranslatability, how do you solve it? Roman Yakovshin has talked about three kinds of translations. It is called as interlingual translation, second is intralingual translation, and third is intersemiotic translation. What do we mean by intralingual translation? When you translate from one language to the same language. I want to try to explain the word, suppose the word is classroom. What I'll do is if I want to translate it in, I want to make you understand, I'll translate in English itself that it's where students study, or I will explain it. This is what we mean by intralingual translation. When you translate within a language itself. Second is interlingual translations, which generally everybody is used to. We translate, suppose a foreigner is conversing with me, and suppose I use the word jalebi, and he would like to know what does jalebi mean. So what I'll do is I'll convert my language from Gujarati to English. It's called interlingual translation. And the third one is very interesting one. So for that, I'm sure all of you must be knowing the idea of Saussure. Saussure talked about sign. language we mean by sign. So from one sign to another sign, when you translate, it's called intersemiotic translation. I'll give you an example. Suppose when a text is translated from a Word document to a film, what do? It's a translation. You have changed the platform basically. The whole sign is changed. So it's intersemiotic translation. So my paper is a combination of two. One is interlingual translation as well as intersemiotic translation. Now let me come to the argument of my paper. I would like to read the abstract first. So it says that this paper is a theatrical adaptation of folktales written by Gujarati writers Zaverchand Meghani. The original folktales are written in the book form, Surati Parvatiya. The language of the source text is written in Kathiawadi dialects when the adaptation, which is my target text, is written in modern English. It is divided into three sections. The first section, the paper discusses the theatrical aspects of translation, which I just discussed. The second sections look after the include the source text as well as actual translation done by author of this paper, which is me. So I would not be going depth into the text that I translated. It's basically an adaptation written in the form of dialogues between based on the stories which is written. I would here like to discuss the critical analysis that when a text is translated from one language to another language or translated from one medium to another medium, what happens. So my third section, critical discussion on the strategies used by the translator while translating from the source text. The scope of this paper is limited to two short stories, that is Navline Johar and Sad Vartyo, which is taken from Zaverchand Meghani's work Shorati Parvatya. This approach of this paper is process-based oriented, which I just talked about. The aim of this writing of the adaptation is the actual performance rather than just reading a play script. So let me quickly come to the third section of my paper. This is the second section where I have done the adaptation. I myself have translated or say written the adaptation. Coming to the third section of my paper. Yeah. So the very first one is to give it a dramatic effect. The narration has been converted into dialogues between characters. The whole scene is a conversation between a father and his three sons based on the first story about a message delivered by a messenger in which three of the sons whose glory is short but does not take part in the narration. So if you see the narration, you can't simply see the glory of those three characters which are there. But when I am translating, when I'm writing an adaptation, I had to show that because it's hidden. When you read the whole story, you will get to see it. Here, I had to show it by words while doing a dialogue. A long narration given at the end of the story is used as a setting for the information where the whole scene is going to take place. So, if you see in a bracket, in the very first bracket, if you go to the whole story which is written in Kathiawadi dialect, you will get the what is the setting. But here I had to find a setting. So what I did is in the very first background in a bracket I gave what is the setting, because when anybody would be performing they would require it. So when you write a script, what you basically need is a setting. So you have to find out the setting first in the story and then you write that in the bracket. So it is given there in the first. Because of the untranslatability and to retain the same effect, I have not translated or deleted many parts like Kathiawadi Doha. So I couldn't give the effect of Kathiawadi Doha. If you take any Doha, it becomes very difficult to translate or even nearly impossible, where we have the question of untranslatability. So what I did is I tried to give an effect, either they are changed in other forms or it would have been translated as in it would be have given and I would have paraphrased it or I would have deleted those parts. Why did it come? I'm sorry. So I'll give you, because of the untranslatability and to retain the same effect, I've not translated or deleted many parts of like Kathiawadi Doha, regional dialects, symbols, slangs, etc. For an example, APA. So word APA, what does it mean? A word used for to address elderly Kathi men to give a respect. So now APA would be what? Elder brother. So I would have rewritten as an elder brother. Or what I would have done, I would have kept it as APA, and then I would have, like many a times, it again based on what is your purpose. If you want your adaptation to be read, you can use several, what do you say, notes at the end notes. But if you are thinking of this as an adaptation to be performed, so while translating any text is based on what is your actual target, whether you want it to be read or whether you want to be it performed, based on this, it would be done. The character of narrator has been adapted for an opening scene, which is actually a doha at the end of the story. So what I did is that doha was at the end, but I couldn't really do it. So what I did is you must be knowing the idea of how this Western theater. I have to wind it up. All right. So that has been done. The sixth strategy that I have is used as rather than doing a literal translation of scenes and dialogues, I have rewritten them. Which means for that many changes are made like that, like the title itself. If you look at the title, it is Juhar. What does it mean? Is a word generally used to say last goodbye, which does not have any equivalent words in English. As the main theme of the story is about the promise made to the river, the title is chosen as Promise to Navli. So if you see the whole title gets changed because you do not have any word over there. So these kind of strategies are used, and at the end of my paper, these two strategies I have used for the first and second one. Like first I have discussed, in the second I also discussed, and in the last part, what I did is what are the similar strategies that were used in the two stories? What are the different strategies that were used in the two different stories that I have discussed? And at the end, I would like to conclude with the idea that whenever you are doing a process-based translation, whenever you are analyzing while translating, one of the approaches, you have to look after what your target is. You have to always ask the question, that is, why are you translating this question? What is your purpose? And based on that, you will be using various strategies. I thank you, each one of you, to listening me peacefully. The questions are welcome. Sir, I would be leaving after 5. All right. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
I would request our chairperson to distribute certificate. Now, for second presentation, I would like to invite Mr. Vishal Kumar to present his ideas.
Yes. Good afternoon to everyone. Dr. Hasmukh in chair, participants, and all presenters. It's a coincidence that the former presenter selected Junction Meghani. Mine is the same, but with a different outlook. Uh, let's wait for the. Yes, that's it. Next one. Cultural representation in the folk tales of Saurashtra. That what my title of the paper is. You see that folk tales have been a legacy in cultural representation in the selected folktales of Saurashtra. So, folktales have been a legacy in any nation, which is a storehouse or a reservoir where, in fact, the intact culture is preserved. And representation is a literary device that puts thematic concerns as well as narration and description in such a way that the culture is implied either obliquely or we can say directly. It represents our folk tales, represent our culture. Uh, you see, the culture and literature have always shared a close relationship, as in evidence in the works of poets and others that I have already mentioned. Culture could not remain unaffected, and my focus is on that how the concern for culture plays role in Indian literature, particularly in folk tales of Saurashtra as representation. That also I have in my abstract I have mentioned it in Ramayana and Mahabharata, that Ramlila and Dhanu Yatra in Orissa that continues to represent this tradition. So every region has its own folk tales, and that has been before the written literature or imprinted literature arrived. That means it's an oral tradition that the folk tales have been passed from one generation to another generation. So that I have mentioned, and particularly my focus is in Saurashtra for Saurashtra because here we can see that not only George and Meghani, but there are other oral bards or we can say folk artists who presented many folk tales. So this is the concern that we want to discuss. Of course, oral narratives, and this is what we have, our own Saurashtra, and that has been the area which Kathiawar, or we can say, we can mention that Jawachan Meghani collected or compiled all the folk tales and presented in a literary way. You see that any text is critically analyzed with these kind of author-oriented, text-oriented, reader-oriented, and context-oriented. But our point is cultural studies. So we would like to, and yes, we have already translations of all the folk tales in form of George and Meghani, The Shade Crimson, short stories based on Saurashtra folklores by George and Meghani, translated by Vinod Meghani, and Bharati Vidya Bhavan published 3 wonderful volumes about these translations of Vinod Meghani himself has done the translations. So I would like to note to my former presenter that it would be helpful to you as well if you go for these 3 noble heritage, Ruby Shattered. These are the collection that we have been brought up by George and Meghani's tales, right? So my point, I have selected 3 folk tales. You see that Jata Shankar, the village courier, very famous Jata Shankar, that near here, just 40 kilometers far from Bhavnagar, there is one village, Amla, right? And that is a wonderful tale of how we can say this tale is about a village courier or the relationship between what exactly the we can say chivalry, what we have, the virtue, and Jata Shankar is a postman or something like postman who walks with a spear and then moves. And here the beginning of the story is such that it is very grateful, but in fact it goes on when we realize that the husband and wife both were going, and at that time some outlaws try to kidnap or try to harm, and at that moment the woman who is walking with the husband was very brave, and the man was a little bit of coward, and suddenly dacoits come, and what happens that the woman comes front, and she fights. At the same time, that village courier Jata Shankar, right? So he was watching all these things, and he recognized that she is from my village. So she considers her a sister, and then Jata Shankar fights with the dacoits, and he has been killed. And then the surprising end that we know everyone, that the woman forsakes her husband, and she also becomes sati. So that is what culture we have. You see that Javajan Megani depicts the, you cannot find such type of tales in any nation. That is our Saurashtra, and that should be focused, because you see that the husband and wife relationship, how can we surpass the most sacred or the most traditional relationship is husband and wife. But here the brother and sister, that means this is what generally we don't know exactly the story, because folk tales are such a stories, we can consider them as a means also sometimes, because it's a, but they, it has been presented by our Jawahar Megani. That's why it should be considered in a different outlook. And the second and the third is also related with both are related horse race, horse rider Luna and Lucky. So Lucky is the name of that horseman, and Luna, that is. So, and the third one is man and her rider Manki. This is a wonderful story. Now this shows that how animal and man both are living in our culture. I hope that I can go more on this, but my research paper describes everything about this culture, and that it highlights the main points as well. Thank you very much. I wind up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, for the next presentation, I would like to call Ms. Khushbu Rathod to share her views. Please, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Khushbu Rathod, a research scholar from Department of English, School of Languages, Gujarat University. Uh, Today, I'm presenting on constructing a home and finding roots in Uma Parmeshwaran's Mangoes on a Maple Tree. Uh, the novel Mangoes on a Maple Tree is about two immigrant family. The one is Bhave and the other is Moke family. As usual, the two family, immigrant family, have faces problems like racism, ruthlessness, alienation, and otherness. So. I start with the introduction of the writer Uma Parmeshwaran. Uma Parmeshwaran is a prominent Indo-Canadian writer who has written extensively on diasporic experience. As an ethnic minority writer, Parmeshwaran represents a growing community of writers in Canada who come from cultures and languages other than English and French. She is a keen observer of the bicultural vision of writers who are caught between two worlds, unable to fully embrace either. She recognized the importance of exploring and understanding the diverse experiences of writers who are struggling to find their place in multicultural society. Parmeshwaran's work reflects the changing face of Canada, where multiculturalism is a key policy of government. She is a strong voice of the ethnic minorities in Canada, highlighting the richness of their cultures and challenges they face in integrating into Canadian society. Now, I'm talking about the novel which I've selected, Mangoes on a Maple Tree. In the context of Parmeshwaran's novel, Mangoes on a Maple Tree, it is possibly to argue that the novel is an engagement literature because it deals with issues of isolation, rootlessness, and experience of Indian diaspora in Canada. The novel portrays the challenges faced by immigrants who leave their home country for a foreign land and difficulties of adapting to a new culture and society. It also highlights the importance of mutual support and collective solidarity among diasporas. Mangoes on a Maple Tree portrays the life of two immigrant families, the Bhave and the Moges. The Bhave family consists of parents and their three children, and the Moges family doing the same. Mangoes on a Maple Tree is a rich and nuanced portrait of the immigrant experience and challenges and complexities of navigating different cultures and identities. Um, it also portrays the first generation and the second generation conflicts. As we can see, father and son argues about their roots, their home, and their ancestors' home. So we can see in uh, on page number 22 on Mangoes on a Maple Tree, when a son asked his father that our people, our old country, that there is no our people, no old country for anyone in the world anymore. Least of all of us, this is our land, and here shall we stay. That means the son says the Canadian soil is our soil, and with argument with his son, the father says, roots son, roots, I often think of our plantain trees back home. Each plantain tree leaves a young sapling before it dried up, and if an Ontario people can't survive in Manitoba soil, what chance do we have? Sharad, the father, belongs to the first generation of Indians who spent most of their lives in India before moving to Canada, and therefore the conflict of assimilation is not so intense for him. However, the second generation, which includes Sharat's children, may suffer more from the conflict of assimilation because they consider Canada as their land and try to become fully assimilated. The first generation non white immigrants who came to Canada had to deal with racism and discrimination in their daily lives. However, many of them were able to cope with these challenges by relying on their strong sense of self worth and cultural identity, which they developed in their countries of the origin. The children of this immigrant, on the other hand, face a different set of challenges. They grow up in Canada and are exposed to Canadian soil context from the early age. While this can provide them with new opportunities and experiences, it can also create a sense of cultural dislocation and a loss of connection to their heritage and cultural identity. This second generation immigrants often face the challenges of trying to reconcile their parents' cultural values and beliefs with the social norms and values of Canadian society. They may experience cultural conflicts or conclusion and may struggle to find their place in a society that is both familiar and foreign to them. Thank you. Vaidya.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your knowledgeable discussion. Now, let's hear from Mr. Jigar Makwana. Please welcome on the stage, sir.
Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone, and greetings of the day to the chairperson. So my name is Jigar Makwana, and I am a research scholar from Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. And my research paper title is Quest for Identity in James McBride's The Color of Water. So here is the introduction. James McBride was born in 1957 in Brooklyn, New York, a biracial journalist, jazz saxophonist, and composer to a black minister Andrew McBride and white Jewish mother Ruth McBride Jordan. Here is the difference between white and black. Here's the white Jewish mother Ruth McBride Jordan. He is well known for his 1995 memoir, the best-selling book *The Color of Water* itself, which describes his life growing up in a poor Afro-American family that was led by his white Jewish mother. And next element is racism in American society. So, basically, Joel, it is now generally acknowledged that the term race entered English early in the 16th century. This was also the time when the term was acquiring currency in other European languages, for example, raça and race in French, raza in Italian, raca in Portuguese, and rosa in Spanish. I often see. Also, Ratan quoted, the term racism was coined in the 1930s primarily as a response to the Nazi project of making Germany Judaian or clean up Jews. Racism in the United States has existed since the colonial period when white Americans were given legitimately or socially endorsed benefits and rights while these equivalent rights were denied to different races and minorities. The next element is racism crisis in the color of water. So the South American, especially in from the 1930s and the 1960s, is a hard. hard place in life was when you are a colored person. Colored person yani black or brown. James McBride discovers the complexities of having biracial activities, especially at a time when black and other minorities are added and discriminated upon by the dominant white society. In chapter 2 School, in the James McBride novel, James reflects upon his and his siblings' early conception about Judaism. They were not familiar with his element of mother's background because she is white, and they had only vague impressions and often misconception of Judaism. Second point is the James represents a later generation struggle with racism, quoted like the question of race was like the path of the moon in my house. Other element is search for identity. The search of identity is a constant theme in American society. Although society itself flavors conformity, the American dream is about the freedom to achieve individuality. Ruth, like other immigrants, wants to be American and needs to be herself instead of repeating the parents' lives. Ruth comes from an Orthodox Jewish tradition that doesn't believe anything abstract, obedience to its ancient perceptions that appear irrelevant to her in the 20th century America. So now we move on conclusion. So gold is the color of water, so says Ruth, and water doesn't have a color. The central point here is not that water doesn't have a color, yet rather that water doesn't have just one fixed color. The color of water is chosen by its environment. Thank you. Here is the references. Thank you. I wind up, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for your colorful, short, and sweet presentation. Now, I would like to call Ms. Mittal Gaur to share their ideas.
Hello, good afternoon all, respected Patel sir and my dear scholars. My name is Mittal Gaur, Kranti Guru Shamji Krishna Verma, Kutch University. I am research scholar of English department at Kutch University. My research guide is Dr. Manish Pandya sir from Arts and Commerce College, Adipur, Tolani College, Commerce College. My title of this topic, research topic is East and West Fable Culture. Comparative study with reference to fables written by worldwide. I have selected few fables. I have selected six countries from Panchatantra, Jataka Tales, Aesop's Fable, African Fables, Korean Fables. These are the few fables which I have studied throughout my research. Also, I have taken go through this. My research methodology is used in this paper is to compare and analysis the paper, they were relevant as in the past as today also. The researcher means I used the descriptive analysis also I used for this paper qualitative research method. I explained this with taken few fables from every part of the culture. I have taken only one fable from all. First of all, I have discussed about the culture. What is fable? Fable means it's a form of literature. It is in a allegorical writing, and we can say that we know that fables are having animals, animal talks. Animals are presented in a short story or poetic form. It's in a poetic form also, as we are having in other cultures. They are written in a poetic form. Fables is the very important part of in the past as well as in nowadays also. It gives us moral teaching. Culture is also very vital concept in the study of human aspects. It gives us through these fables. Every fables have different cultures. Culture help us to develop knowledge, improve behavior, expressing, interpreting social realities around human beings. Culture is also called as a social group. Human nature tendency socialize people living together and sharing their cultures. This is our culture, and we share this culture through the fables. Comparative and culture offers you opportunity to study fascinating breathe material to focus with the context, places, periods, and genre to explore how this key culture shifts transforms how we see, represents, and make sense of our changing world. Collection of Comparative collection of literature gives us opportunity to study variety of foreign fables originally written from different languages and translated into English. This research paper is reflected the need of understanding and awareness of other cultures. Almost every country has their own fables. They have become an important part of our history, of literary history. First of all, I have discussed the Panchatantra that is from our Indian culture. It's a collection of fables, Indian fables originally written in Sanskrit, written by Vishnu Sharma. He was a scholar, Brahmin, and he have gave 5 parts. And very important, I gave this first of all because we are Indians and we have this very fables in a very descriptive manner. Other fables were not in a descriptive manner. In this, we find so beautifully mannered, very beautifully structured story within story, series of stories. Characters are giving very beautifully named as they are performing their roles in that story. And animals give the human qualities as we know fables have. And in this Panchatantra, we have 5 parts. 5 panch means panch, and tantra means that parts are there, 5 parts are there, and that 5 parts consist of different stories, and each and every story is connected with each other, and that first part is connected with the another part, and the another part is connected with the. In that, I have taken one of the very common story, that is monkey and crocodile, that we always learn or in our very small memories when we were small in our KG classes. That time we have gone through these stories. Monkey used to live on a tree and he used to eat that sweet apples, and that near that pond is there, and that pond where crocodile, Mr. and Mrs. Crocodile were living, and they come to every day play with that monkey. One day, that Mrs. Crocodile asked Mr. Crocodile to bring that monkey. I want to eat that monkey's heart. That is a very beautiful story. We already know about it. I will not much go detail, but this same story we find in Jataka tales also. The Jatak tales are there. That is the second tales which I want to discuss. This is also Indian ancient fables, but it is related to Buddhism. It is related to Lord Buddha. It is related to birth of Lord Buddha, and it is existed in Pali language and then translated into many languages. But originally, it was written in Pali languages. Then come to the third part, that is ancient Greek fables, that is Aesop's fable. Aesop's fable is a very old fables. We know that Aesop was a slave. He was living in a forest area, and so he used to pass on the stories orally, generated the stories from generation to generation. These fables have most famous with for their morals, and we know that fables are always famous for their morals, and this is regarding the moral themes and life lessons. In this, we find allegorical prose composition also, like animal, trees, birds, and other animated objects and other characters are often comic and satiric in tone. Represent types of human qualities, vice and virtues. Everything is presented in this, but a very short and very simple stories are there. According to, we can compare according to our literature, Indian ancient fables, Panchatantra, it's in a very drastic, very related to very descriptive manner, but whereas compared to this Aesop's fable, it will complete in few lines, not in a paragraph also. Within a 6 or 7 line, the fables are completing. So not any setting or not any orally we can tell the stories with very widely, but the written form is very simple, sweet and simple. Next, I have talked about French fables. It's written by Jane de La Fontaine. The name of the collection of the fables is La Fontaine Fables. This is also very important collection because this fable is in a lyrical style. It's in a free verse, animal characteristics. They have the same human natures. They have slyness, cleverness. Everything is there as fables have, but it's in a okay, it's in a poetic form. The next and Korean fables. The Korean fables, they are originally orally. Very few fables I have got written form in English. It's a very cultural teaches us. In this also we find very familiar fables, which is in Aesop's fable and Panchatantra. So we can understand that originally the fables are Panchatantra and Aesop's fable, but others fables are they are copy paste from that side. They are used something to add their fables to culture that to make something new. But original fables are Panchatantra, Jataka tales, and Aesop's fable. So this is my paper. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your expertise with us. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Kumar Chandwani to present their views. Please, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone, respected sir, dear participants. Myself, Kumar Chandwani, PhD scholar from Gujarat University, and today I would like to talk about magic realism and justice in Isabel Allende's Of Love and Shadows. Uh, Magic realism is an artistic movement which combines elements of real with the elements of fantastic or magical. Means in real world, how we can include supernatural elements. Okay, so but with in magic realism, there is no explanation why this kind of things are happening. But we have the reader has to adopt the same thing as it is happening. Like spirits are there. Here, I would like to quote one statement from Marquis, who is a famous author, a writer of magic realism. He said that when I say people that elephants are flying in the sky, nobody is going to believe. But when I say 425 elephants are flying in the sky, people will tend to believe, and nobody will think about what is the explanation behind that particular thing. So magic realism is a perspective to literature that fabricates fantasy and myth of the life of everyday matters. The term magic realism was adopted as one of the literary genres in post-colonial Latin America. And I have also put one image. Okay, it is an art from Robert Gonzalez, who has given 25 art forms to describe magic realism. This is one of them. If I talk about the origin and development of magic realism, so the term magic realism was first used by Novalis, the German poet and philosopher, in 1798 to refer to true prophet. It was not that from the earlier it has came into literature. After that, Franz Roh in 1925, he used this term to define the art, and then move over to 1940s, 1950s, magic realism from painters to literature. Like we have writers, Toni Morrison is there, Marquis is there, Isabel Allende, Laura Esquivel, Japanese author Haruki Murakami. In India, we also have Salman Rushdie's The Midnight Children, where telepathy is mentioned. Likewise, it developed magic realism. It is developing in a contemporary fiction as well. These are the elements which are used by the author which I have selected, Isabel Allende, to demonstrate magic realism. The irreducible element means Here we have been shown the world where they have their own, which not follow the universal laws. Okay, where supernatural elements are there. It merges the realms. Matlab right now, as we are sitting here in this room, we are human beings, and the neighboring room we have spirits are there, and we can communicate with the spirits. That is the merging realm. The disruption of time, space, and identity. Generally, we consider that this is man-made society where time is importance of the male characters are there, identities of the men. Isabel Allende has given dominance to female characters and she disrupted this element of time, space, and identity. The phenomenal world, which like a different world is represented, and the unsettling doubt. Doubt is always there, but there is no settlement of that doubt. You know, sometimes when I say, for example, in one of the novel of Laura Esquil, which is very much popular, like Water for Chocolate, there is one character. She is preparing cake, and while preparing a cake, tears came from her eyes, and the tears were mixed with the cake. And all the people who ate that cake, they started crying. So that is magical element. Sometimes we also have a doubt, but doubt is not solved. Why it is that? So that is what magic realism is all about. Isabel Allende, she is also the author of my PhD. Isabel Allende is a Chilean American writer in the magic realist tradition. She is regarded as one of the first successful women novelists from Latin America. The portray of South American politics was her main concern in many of her works. Allende's stories combine the storms of fantasy and myth and are presented through the feminine point of view, which is full of drama, romance, struggle, and are based in her own experiences of childhood. You know, the society which people are want to present but they are unable to present, she has presented the real Latin America, their politics using magical aspects. This is how she has used magic realism in her works. Allende used magic realism to draw attention toward political matters within Latin America as well as feminist matters. Allende utilizes magic realism to expose truths in Latin America where patriarchal and political oppression has persisted for centuries. As a female author in a country where women's voices are limited, Allende employs magic realism to unfold her feminist visions and dreams. Basically, she has presented feminist point of view and how women are dealing with that. And for that, I also quote one more example that, again of crying, as I don't like to cry, but I have to quote the example of crying only. There was a female, she started crying. As we know that when we cry, tears will shed. But when she cried, fabric will come. And she made the clothes from that fabric and she started selling the clothes. And she started doing the business and she earned the money to talk about the society, what society is there. Again, it is unsettling doubt. Doubt is always there, which is not possible. But as we know that, just that we are watching several movies like Brahmastra was also there. Okay, it is also the real characters, but magic is always there sooner or later. Sorry. This is the novel which I have selected, Of Love and Shadows. Of Love and Shadows represents, I have taken one more element, magic realism and justice. Isabel Allende says that if you reveal the truth, justice will automatically come out. So she has revealed the truth and justice she has kept towards the readers. Of Love and Shadows represents the political disruption of the nation and narrates the story through the eyes of those whose voices have been ignored, that are particularly women. In this novel, Allende has used themes of contrast between the integrity of the love and shadows of violence and male violence. The novel investigates the contradiction between, on one hand, the tenderness and beauty of love, and on the other hand, the darkness and cruelty of everyday life. Further, Allende's novel comprises two different narratives together. One is described by fact and other by fiction. Two events are mentioned over here. One of the real events of 1978 is the base of this novel, when there is a discovery of hidden grave containing 15 unidentified dead bodies in China. Second one, in the first part, the novel, the author has given introduction of the families through which the experiences of the autocratic dictatorship are explored. I will come to that. The second part of the novel deals with the romantic relationship between Irene, she is a magazine editor, and Francisco, who is a photographer, grows as a search for Evangelina Ranquillo, where there is a girl who has a supernatural powers. Of Love and Shadow, a novel, is set in a country of uninformed arrests, unforeseen disappearances, and summarized implementations. There is an investigation of the crime which has happened that while going for the investigation, okay, they were unable to find the dead body of that particular girl. But later on, by searching on other case with the supernatural powers of some girl, they reached to one particular mine where there were more than 15 dead bodies were there. And that was the truth which was brought, and the justice was kept to the reader. Okay, now you think what can be the justice for that? And this is also, at last, I have kept one more image to demonstrate magic realism, where the water is falling, 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 and suddenly you can see the magic is there. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Magical realism allows an artist like myself to inject layers of meanings without being obvious. Thank you so much for sharing your views, sir. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Kumar Chandwani to present their views. I'm sorry. Pardon me. Furthering the session, please welcome to the stage Mr. Vishnu Panchal. Please, sir. It's not present. Okay. Furthering the session, please welcome to the stage Mr. Kuldeep Mehta. Please, sir.
Very good afternoon to one and all present here. So, my research paper goes along with my PhD topic, that is in which I am studying the non-fictional form, that is memoir, through the psychological aspects. And here I am taking up a fictional work, which too, as the former presenter had, to a very good extent had explained, the magic realism is consisting of that. So there is also the elements of fiction and non-fiction that are mingling there. So my paper is titled as Narratives as Cure, an interpretation of Indu Muralidharan's re-engineers through the narrative psychology. So Indu Muralidharan, she is a Indian author, but is mostly educated in the Britain, and the course that she acquired latest was that of creative writing. So in the work, we will also see many of the postmodern elements that she is, incorporating in the work, as well as there are so many of the literary techniques that are there, and so many of the elements from the throughout the history of English literature is also there. So and the latest research shows that the we are anyways aware that the depression has been an ever broadening kind of question, a challenge to our society, especially in the post-modern senses. So, which is kind of ironic, as the age earlier to us also went through depression, but their issues were like out of our imaginations. There were two great wars, the First and Second World Wars. There was the crash in economy. So their depressions make sense to us, but depression, like rising in our age, is kind of confusing. So and also the age group that is most affected in these days happens to be the age group of the young adolescents. So this novel particularly deals with that. It is itself a novel of very recent publication. It was published in 2015 only. So she is addressing this issue through the fiction, and at the same time, I am studying it from the point of view of this branch of psychology, that is the narrative psychology. So, to give a brief introduction to the narrative psychology, it was introduced as a paradigm shift for the psychological researches. So, the psychology is more or less considered to be a scientific field. There are clinics by the therapists. So, the method till now has been mechanistic. They are coming up with formulas, and they give out the laws of performing the cures. So it was introduced as an replacement, not just an addition, but a replacement to the traditional research that is conducted in the psychology. So what it does is that it advocates for the a newer method, that is to study these human experiences in a narrative manner, and then to explain them too is to be done in a narrative manner. So it can be compared with what Michel Foucault calls the discourse, kind of an all incorporating term. So discourse would also, like incorporate methods. There are philosophies that are incorporated. In the same manner, the narration, it like giving simple and concrete sentences will not suffice the portrayal of the human experiences. So, and it can also be compared with the Aristotle's argument of mimesis being organic to humans. So when we say that the narrative is organic to us, like we learn from the narratives, and narratives in fact become some of a superior manner of learning, because they have this ability to hold us, make us involved, uh, to give the grasp of my paper now. She is basically listing out the triggers in the triggers of depression in the young adults. So the four triggers are related to these four fields of their life. That is the academia, then their families, uh, their the expectations from the peers, and then it is also the age of puberty, so their love engagements. So and the cure that she comes up with are along the lines of writing a fiction. Like when we sit down to write a fiction, if not fiction then anything, uh, what does it take? It takes immense amounts of clarity in our mind. So that can be compared with the practice of journaling. The patient is to sit down and write their experiences, and then it provides the clarity to themselves as well as their therapist. So, and the Bacon has famously also said that the reading makes a full man, conference a ready man, and the writing an exact man. So it is kind of putting your thoughts out on the paper in a concrete form, so it becomes easy for anyone and yourself to realize that. Also, it goes along the lines of the philosophy of know thyself. When we say that the this mantra from Vishnu Puran, that is Savidyaya Vimukte. So the knowledge is that which sets you free. So your self realization, that knowledge will help in curing your depression. So that is the same thing which Wordsworth does under the sycamore tree, or Buddha does under the Bodhi tree. And there is also the concept of detachment, like when we write we write in a third person, so we are not personally vulnerable, and it helps clear our mind. And there are also the allu- allusions and uh, mingling of the fact and fiction. And with this, I conclude my.
Thank you so much, sir. Now let's hear from Miss Simran Chavara. Please welcome to the stage, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everybody. To awaken you a little bit, I'm here to discuss about the book covers or the book jackets that we actually see in the markets that are ready for us to actually help them buy as a commercial aspects of it. So today, as our prospect of the seminar is research studies, I've actually taken 3 critical essays to compare and prove my point. For the first critic, I have Gillian Rose, who has actually given the concept of visual analysis. So, for my topic for today is multimodality of visual analysis to study book covers of A Passage to India by E.M. Foster. So, uh, as of my second critic, I have Cress Lewin. So, because we talk about the word multimodality over here, multimodality comes from multimodal discourse, of which the introduction has already been given by Atanu Bhattacharya sir. So, I hope we know what modalities are, so I'm not going into that. But for multimodal discourse, Cress Lewin is the person responsible who has been time and again for 10 years, 20 years, has been revising his work upon multimodality. And my third critic is none other than Rola Barthes. So I have taken Rola Barthes' image, music, and text as my third critical essay. So upon the meaning, you would say that any image that we see on the book cover, say for example, I have E.M. Foster's this book cover. So any of the image that comes in front of us, how is it actually making an impact on us? So any image is constituted by meaning. So I quote over here from Gillian Rose herself, meanings can never be animated from some kind of vacuum. They are to be supported from a certain kind of time period, audience allowances, and then effects on the people who are watching it. So further on, to support this argument, actually Cress adds on to the point of multimodality that even if any of the image, say for example, lady over here is going to have the same effect on you of what Mona Lisa is going to have on you. So when for the first time we see Mona Lisa, we would have our own interpretations. So at the first time or the first glance of any book cover or book jacket, we are going to have our own interpretations of that. So Cress Lewin adds on to that any of the book cover, I quote, have its correlation and its contemporary meaning to it, which is supported by the text, title, caption, and any article that is in support to that photograph. Third event that is given by Barthes is again in context to meaning making. He says that any of the headline text associated with the image has to make a semantic meaning out of it. It has to have a semantic enough capacity to unfold the story behind it, I unquote. So this interdisciplinary discourse of visual culture that comes from pictures, films, posters, graphics, even paintings and catalogs can be studied with the help of multimodality. So again, I take a visual analysis as an interdisciplinary approach. We have understood how meaning can be made. So now we are going to look at how interdisciplinary approach can be taken. So again, I quote from a statement by Kress, a gaze, a gesture, a spoken sentence, or even a touch can be shown through images, which Leonardo da Vinci has already done for us. He has been able to mimic the reality of skin into pictures, really, which is again complemented by the avant-garde movement that we study in postmodernism. So on this argument, actually, Rose is supporting Kress, saying that the act of visualization is the depiction of the social differences and hierarchies given in the book covers. As we can see over here, again, I'll just take the example because that's my subject. This is also part of my PhD because any of the book cover that we see over here, when we see two female who are British, are at a background or a location that is that belongs to India. So the cultural hierarchy and the cultural difference over there is completely visible. On that note, Gillian Rose also gives 4 dimensions to her study, which can be studied in 4 ways. That is visual analysis, compositional interpretation, what is semiology, and what are discourse analysis. So we can go through her critical essay and then study that. So first method is actually the good eye or the way of seeing of what Tanu Bhattacharya was actually relating to, that the ways of seeing of how we actually look at any type of image. Say for example, here is a literary device given by Kress Lewin. It is in collaboration of Kress Lewin with Gillian Rose. So they came up with this multimodality structure together, but it is again furthermore simplified by Terry Hornby. So Terry Hornby has came up with this concept of site of production, site of audiencing, and then site of image itself. We go from outside to inside to study the image properly. And on that note, Rose particularly talks that any of these 3 dissections need not go together. So she herself gives us the permission to actually use half of the device and then do our interpretation, which I have done over here already. I've made use of this literary device to study the book jackets. So for my analysis today, I'm going to just take these 3 questions. So 3 questions are very much legitimate coming from an article straight away. I'm not making any questions. So those are visual interpretations, composition, and visual effects. We'll see the meaning of them in a minute. Over here. So, along with this, in Griffin's book, Gabriel Griffin, I think we know, who has compiled research methodologies for English students. In that book, it is, I quote, clarifying gaze by the strategies such as blurred focus. So, over here, the image is in a blurred focus format, which I use to make a point. They again fall into the idea of compositional interpretation. Blurred focus, collage, and overexposure. So here is an example of the collage that has been used. This image is again taken from Gillian Rose's book of visual methodologies. These are not I've taken from the air. And this is the example of overexposure of what Gillian Rose is actually talking about. So once we've understood what Gillian Rose, Kress, and Mathis, all 3 of them are trying to say, we'll move on to the practical example of how they can be applied to the book covers. As we can see, a very dusty book cover over here is actually known as the dust jacket. So the historical name for the book cover is actually dust jacket, and the word evolved as book jacket, and now they are known as book covers. So this one is the particular book cover. Because it does not has any image, it cannot be interpreted very well. So the plain organic jacket is left. It is only there to maintain the longevity of the book, just to maintain the binding of it. So the site of image is none. We come over here to the second book cover. Now, all the book covers I've chosen here are coming from Penguin publishers, so they are again legitimate sources where I've picked them. This image over here again is an elephant, or iske upar we are having a question sitting over here, accompanied by some of the Indians. This is the scene of Malabar Caves from the novel. As the students of English studies, I hope you know what is the passage to India. It is a time-tested novel, and so yeah, this is a scene of Malabar Caves. This image is actually taken from the movie of 1984. So this is a particular image over there. Composition along with the colonial specs of an elephant cart, there has to be a shade to it and locals following the caravan. How colonial image could it be that a white woman is going on the elephant and all the locals over there are following her? So such a strong image. Visual meanings taken from the film adaptations over here can be interpreted. So you might have to watch the film to actually know the particular meaning behind them. And the site of image is the Malabar Caves. We come to the composition of this particular cover again. Thoda sa we are now focusing on the elephant again. We've gone closer to the elephant. Same structure, Adela is sitting over here. Same umbrella we can see, and the locals down over here. One more elephant has been added. And then colonial specs over here again. We can question this cover actually, that why, if it is passage to India, then Indian. Okay, then passage to India. This Indian picture should have been come up. So that's one. We go more closer to the elephant. Again, the elephant is broken down. Now it is published. You can see 1960s, where people are coming out of colonialization now. So the elephant is actually broken. More colonial picture on the book cover, elephant and the English flag. Nothing more colonial than this, I feel. Then we come closer to another imagery that is of a mosque, because here we can see the structure of a mosque and lake over here. So this is somewhere again taken from the movie. It's a place near Malabar Caves and the mosque where Dr. Aziz goes to pray. Can I take 1 minute, sir? Going closer to the same image, it is again rectified in some further years, again by Penguin. Going closer to this image, it is now clear. So the mosque is very much visible, the water is visible, the bridge is visible. Now coming to the right-hand side alignment of the same scene. The same scene has been depicted with a mirror on top of it. Just to give the effect of Indianization, you can see the year is 1947. So you can just say that Britishers have again tried to maintain their mark over here. And E.M. Foster actually at the end was a British writer, so he's going to make his stand. Then passage to India, we see again 1946, a very hazardous time of quit India movement. How can we come to ideas with that people were looking for peace? So what better symbol of peace than Buddha? And this is a very, this is my favorite one. Plain white canvas at the background and drawings in front, very simple. Now they have taken Dr. Aziz into consideration. Now not only Adela is there, but Dr. Aziz has also started coming into the picture. And this is the most darkest picture we will actually come across in the book covers, because these two British women are, and the downward slope is actually a very negative indication. And this negative indication is screaming out of this book jacket somehow. And this is an actual image taken from Bangalore in 1880, where some British women were actually visiting. And this is a very old image. And this cave at the background is the site of Indianness and colonialism again at the top. So here I conclude with just the last picture over here. When people cannot find anything to symbolize India, they will put Taj Mahal, they will put this pink city door, or they will put an elephant. And that's what they have done over here in 2008. So I conclude my point with that. Thank you, everybody.
Adventures do occur, but not usually. These were some lines from A Passage to India. Thank you so much, ma'am. Please join me in welcoming Miss Asta Tokia, who will present a critical study of the plight of third gender and select work of Mahesh Dattan. Please, ma'am. Hello. Thank you so much, ma'am. Hello, everyone. A very frantic good afternoon to you all. My name is Asta Tokia, PG student from Department of English, Dr. Kavi Narasimha University. As you all are very aware of the fact that literature of any era is just like the mirror image of that era, country, region in which the writer was living, or in which era the text itself is being written. And it is the fact that this literature is being a helpful tool for making the societal issues, problems of the people to a forefront to the society. So there are so many writers who are very fearless to talk about such societal problems of the any particular country, writer, or region. So Mahesh Dattani is one of them, and actually people are very afraid to talk about such societal issues that are prevalent in any society. So the rationale behind my present research is to bring forward the marginalized community, queer community, and especially the transgender to make picturize the condition and their plight in the 21st century. I have selected the text Seven Steps Around the Fire, which is written by Mahesh Dattani. So title for my presentation is A Critical Study of the Plight of Third Gender in the select work of Mahesh Dattani, and that is Seven Steps Around the Fire. So the writer Mahesh Dattani was born on the 7th August 1958, and he is basically a Gujarati person. Okay, sir. He is one of the first writer who is a Sahitya Akademi Awardian. And when I talk about Mahesh Dattani's writing, I have selected this particular writer because Mahesh Dattani's works are being considered as the societal documentation, because he is dealing with the societal problems and issues like gender discrimination, gender identity, or female identity, like anything. So moving towards the main core point of the discussion, that is Seven Steps Around the Fire. It is the very first play in the series of radio plays that are written by Mahesh Dattani, and this play was first broadcast on by British broadcast on 9 January 1999. Basically talking about the text, it is about the identity crisis of Kinners, as you all are aware about the fact that these are the people of queer community, LGBTQs, and here LGBTQ T stands for the transgender, that are also known as the third gender, or hijras, or Kinners, or Inanchis. Dattani in this place focuses on the identity crisis of these hijras. Actually, in the very beginning of the play, he discusses about the mythological creation or the origin of this hijra community, that where they belong to. Actually, it was being believed that when God Rama was going to the forest for the Vanvas, some men were following of the villages. So Ram said that man and woman turn back. So some men were like dissatisfied, so they joined them and they castrated themselves, and this castrated being, and they sacrificed their masculinity for God Ram, and they are blessed, and they are known as the Kinners or the Hijras. So major characters of the play are Uma Rao, Suresh Rao. Anarkali is belonging to the queer community, like a transgender. Champa is also a transgender. Kamla is also a transgender. And other characters are Mr. Sharma, Subbu Sharma, and Constable Munduswamy. So, yes. So aims and objectives for the proposed research are: I wanted to know more about the Mahesh Dattani's other works, as that are the societal documentations, to gain familiarity with the concept of third gender, or in specifically a queer theory or queer literature. It makes forward the transsexuality or transgender reality. It is actually. I have divided my research on the basis of the sociological analysis, as I have divided my research in the three prospects, that are the micro level, meso level, and the macro level. So, taking a reference of 7 steps around the fire, micro level analysis means taking into consideration one's individual identity, that whether that person is having their individual identity or not in the society. So here, from the original dialogues of the text, Munswamy says, you may see the hijra now, and Munswamy considers the hijra as it.
As we say he for the man, she for the woman, but it for the animal or any non-living object. But here, Munswami uses it for the hijras. So it says that they have no real identity of their own. And they are also another character named Suresh Rao says that they are as strong as the horses. So it is a direct reflection that they are considered as the animal or non-living objects, and they are also considered as the others. When the actually this whole text is in the form of the case study of the Umara, who is a research scholar like all of us, and she is doing her PhD work on the Hijras community, and she takes into consideration the case of the Anarkali, and she says that, who are you? Then Anarkali says that I am a person belonging to Hijra community, and I have nothing to do rather than to dance and sing in others' marriages or rather in the childbirth of the others. So they are also keeners and living in the Guru Chela system. So they have lost their real identity. They have accepted the fact that they are not considered into human beings. So second level is the meso level. Meso level is a sociological analysis that constructs the sociological groups like immediate groups such as family, friends, and work. That what is their condition in the family, in the friends, and along with their work situations. Actually, that is not a question of being marginalized from the family, because their family members leaves them on their own, and from the very birth time they are living in the Guru Chela system, so their parents leaves them, and the third level is the macro level. Macro level is the most important because it deals with any particular country, and here it is dealing with the India as a nation. The third level of sociological analysis, it deals with the society, culture, politics, policies, and the laws of India. Main transgender characters named Anarkali, Champa, and Kamla. Dattani says that they are the invisible minority. Another phrase that is used for them is the lowest of the low or the invisible minorities. First group that they are suffering in the jail, in the society, is that when Anarkali is in the jail, Munswami the constable uses it for her. And Muniswami says that beat it, because it is the reflection that she is not dealt as the other prisoners are dealing with. So it is a clear reflection that they are not treating well in the society. Irony of the seven steps around the fire, as you all are aware, that seven steps around the fire is a image that a man and a woman is being in a knot of a marriage, and these people of transgender are not allowed to being married. So this is a sheer irony of the Indian society that they are not allowed to do marriage, but this is the only privilege that they are having, that they have to dance and sing in the marriages of others or in the occasion of the other's childbirth. Okay? Just 1 minute, sir. So now I would like to conclude that I have come on the conclusion that even 21st century is being considered as the most developed era, but when it comes to the caste, region, sexuality, or gender, people are still living in the past. People are still living that sheer narrow-minded mentality that they are ashamed to talk about such people, marginalized or discriminated people. So this is the analysis of the text and resultant findings. Thank you so much. I would like to conclude.
Some are born into their bodies, others have to fight for it. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would like to call Mr. Bhavik Makwana to share their views. Please, sir. I think he is not present. Okay. So, for the next presentation, I would like to call Ms. Khushbu Chotalia. Please welcome to the stage, ma'am.
afternoon, everyone. Myself, Khushbu Chataria, PG student from Bhakti Kavi Narsimha Mehta University, Junagadh. And I'm dealing with today's research paper topic, the problems of language teaching and learning after COVID in Select College of Junagadh. I'm taking a practical topic for my research paper. First of all, I go for introduction. As we all know that English language is the global language. However, every language has its own stand and significance. But the English language has widely accepted in international language. When one person goes in one country to another, even in another state, one should be knowledge and ability to speak English, to develop the communication skill, and to make a good personality. English is needed and it's required to. As far as literature is concerned, it is the part and parcel of a language. Through the medium literature, we can learn and observing everything in our surrounding. First of all, I will go investigation for the problem of teaching and language learning after COVID. During the research, I will mention, will also throw a light on the positive and negative aspects of post-COVID in Select College of Junagadh, which kind of student faces problems in after COVID. And then I will following points in details, problem to be investigated, objectives, hypotheses, and historical background of English language. And then move forward to the problem to be investigated. Me, myself, student of the Dr. Subhash College, and I know what was the problem of post-COVID. What was the main problem after the COVID, and I am facing while teaching and learning, which kind of misunderstanding through the and that's why I'm taking this topic to elaborate the students' problem as well as the teachers' problem. For the purpose of research, my objectives are to find out the problem of students and as well as the check the level of students and move forward to the research design. The research I depict three things in under the banner of research design: research methodology, tools and techniques, and sample for the research. Research methodology. I will dealing with survey-based method, which is known as the descriptive method also, and I will using this method for collect data and tools and techniques. And I will apply Google Form questionnaire for collect information regarding the problems of teaching and language learning after COVID, and I will use interview technique to get response from the faculty members to collect data and sample for this research. Students and teachers both are the samples for my research. Procedure of this study. What was the procedure? I will mention in all over the research paper. First of all, I made Google Form questionnaire to collect data, and then framed questions for interview, and select one college, some specific students and faculty members for data collection. Then questionnaire, I share one questionnaire among the students, and after that I'm taking personal interviews for teachers and collect response from the students as well as the teachers also, and then I will analyze and interpret all the collected data. Move forward to the addresses to the objectives. What I feel objectives my or not. All the objectives of the research are fulfilled and justified in the fourth chapter. In my research paper, I will mention that in the fourth chapter, objectives are fulfilled and fully justified. Data analysis and interpretation. In this we come across various problems after COVID in language learning. Also, we can check the level of students. They are not that much brilliant in fluency of language learning. As well as my hypothesis is proven and correct after the process of the research that yes, there are multiple problems after COVID in language learning at my Select College of Junagadh. what was my findings in this research in problems in language learning. Throughout that, I observed that English teacher have to use bilingual method while teaching English because our students is a because English language is a second language is not our first language. They can't understand it properly. And second thing is most of the learners hesitate to speak English. And third one is due to lack vocabulary, they can't speak properly in the classroom. All over the conclusion of my this research paper, I will mention in the final chapter will sum up the whole research problem. In the previous four chapters, I provided some information regarding the post-COVID in language learning. And I will mention review of multiple research article, dissertation, and books also. And furthermore, I will describe the method, tool, sample, and required things in the third chapter. In the fourth chapter, I can collect data and interpretation it. In the final chapter, I can address to the objectives and I will show my findings all over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would like to call Ms. Swani Rajyaguru for her presentation. Please, ma'am. So there is a famous quote by Virginia Woolf that I am rooted but I flow. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Swani Rajyaguru, the student of Department of English, Maharaja Krishna Kumar City Public University. And today I'm gonna deal with comparative study of feminist perspective in the works of Virginia Woolf and Kamala Das. So the points I'm gonna ponder. First is introduction, then definition and explanation of the term feminism and comparative studies, feminism in the works of Virginia Woolf, feminism in the works of Kamala Das, comparison and analysis of both writers' works, result of comparison, conclusion and references. So first is so this is the table of contents. Introduction. So in this paper, I have tried to see the pillars and pitfalls of feminism through the lens of early 19th and the late 20th century by comparative study of Virginia Woolf and Das works, which shows that how the time is changing, but the struggle of women is still the same. So we can see that from a very long era, women are struggling. For example, in the Western history, in the 19th century, women were confined to the domestic sphere, while public life was reserved for men only. And in the medieval Europe, women were denied the right
to own property, to study, or to participate in public life. In the France, the situation was the same. At the end of 19th century in France, they were still compelled to cover their heads in public. In Germany, in some parts, the husbands had right to sell their wives, and so this all the things shows that women were prevented from conducting business without a male representative, be it father or brother, husband, legal agent, or even son. Married women could not exercise control over their children without the permission of their husband. So, moreover, women had little or no access to education and were banned from most professions. So, all these things led women towards the one term which is called feminism. So, what is feminism? According to Merriam-Webster dictionary, feminism is a belief in and advocacy of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes, expressed especially through the organized activity on behalf of the women's rights and interests. So the belief in social, economical, political equality of the sexes, gender equality is the core of this feminist movement. So a literary movement, this literary movement aims to revolt against the patriarchal society which is associated with the masculine with superiority, strength, action, domination, and the feminine with the inferiority, weakness, obedience. So now what is comparative studies? As I am comparing Virginia Woolf and Kamala Das' works. So concept that derives from the work to compare. This is fundamentally the discipline of the comparative literature. It is also a practice that a habit of learning, a way of studying literature, film, culture without arbitrarily stopping at national or linguistic borders. So we acknowledge that the world is interconnected. When we follow ideas across border, we assume not that the world should come to us, cater to us, or be translated into our language, but rather than that, it is our responsibility to explore the world, to seek to understand cultures on their own terms, to find commonalities, respect differences. Now, feminism in the works of Virginia Woolf. So, most of her works are related to feminism, and she has especially used the stream of consciousness narration. For example, Mrs. Dalloway, Room of One's Own, Three Geniuses, Orlando. I have taken 4 knowledges of Virginia Woolf. So, first we can see in the Mrs. Dalloway, the Clarissa Dalloway, feminine creativity and feminine model of perception, critical views of the various kind of masculine creativity, law-making, soul-kerning, and empire-building is seen in the novel. The feminine power stands in sharp contrast to the masculine power, and this novel shows that how women preserve a culture which is nearly ruined by man. Rooms of One's Own, the essay written in 1929, in this essay, she talks the how room is important for women. So the feminist movement led by Woolf may demand to have their own room and constant income at the risk of corrupting their society and new generation while giving a Victorian angle. Women also mothering and exaggerate opposing natality. And the Three Geniuses, the prequel of Room of One's Own. In this, the patriarchal power structure defines the political, social, and economical parameters in which women must operate. That the segregation of women from this power structure will make it difficult for them to be successful, defined by it. Orlando, in which the person who changed the gender from man to women, the blending of masculine and feminine traits is significant in the whole book, and this shows that there is nothing like a pure male or female characteristic, but we are rather different personalities regardless of our sex. So feminism in the works of Kamala Das, she has mostly written poetries, and the poetries like Summer in Kolkata. So in that poem, she explores the womanhood and love. She writes in the poem that who wants a woman? I am every woman who seeks love in him. So in Das' eyes, womanhood involves certain collective experiences. In her poem, The Old Playhouse, she expresses a sense of disgust at the habits of and treatments of male. And in another poem, like the Sunshine Cat, The husband never loves nor uses her, but a ruthless watcher who shuts her. And what happened to that woman? She writes that she was cold, half-dead woman now of no use at all to men. Really, the agony undergone by women in the male-dominated society is delighted in every very moving mode. So this resentful attitude of Kamala Das reveals her love for freedom, but she finds herself in a cage like a bird. So the another poetry of her, the Stone Age. In this, she writes that the husband devoid of love is spoken as a fond husband, ancient settler in mind, old fat spider, waving webs of bewilderment. So we can see that she generally writes her personal experiences in her poetry, and through that she becomes the voice of Indian women, especially the housewife, the women who are being the witness of dominance power of man. Kamala Das' autobiography named My Story, in which she shows how her urge for identity and liberation finds its fulfillment in the superimposition of her poetic self over the domestic self, which compelled her to play the monotonous and enslaved role of a wife. And the another poem, A Losing Battle, she claims that women should use the cheapest bet possible instinct to lure men into their traps. In a poem titled The Conflagration, she this begging for women's independence from male dominance is more forceful. Now, while comparing both writers' works and both writers' narrative techniques and all the things, we can find that Kamala Das is a sensitive and painful soul that of Indian poetry. She writes her poetry is mainly related to her own self. Poet's intense passion to the world by beginning with the self. She introduced the picture of her feminine self as a tormented, youthful woman, stimulates Indian women to identify the room of the own that suppress their sensation for the sake of patriarchal domination, and her poem present her fearless voice in the condemning the inequalities and injustice in the treatment of society towards women, and she has pictured the women demanding equal social right. So many critics wrote about her feminine sensibility. That first of all, yeah, just 1 minute. So K.R.S. Iyengar write that Kamala Das is a firstly feminine sensibility that is without inhibition to articulate that hurts and receive in an insensitive, largely man-made world. And many other critics wrote about her. Then Virginia Woolf, she also is very similar to Kamala Das, but she most of her writings related to the Victorian era. And the critics wrote about her that Woolf did not so much come up with one approach or theory as frame and asked several important questions for feminist criticism, not all of which she answered or even to answer definitively. Indeed, in her essay, Why is there? While we do comparison, we can find that Virginia Woolf writes about the situation of women during the period of World War I and II, and Kamala Das protested against the prevalent system of the society in the 20th century. So the conclusion, okay. So this is the conclusion that women are struggling, but no matter how the obstacles are, she always rise. These are my references. Thank you. You cannot find peace by avoiding life. Thank you so much, Dhwani. Last but not least, our final presenter of the day is Ms. Hirva Pandya. Please welcome to the stage, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hirva Pandya. Today I am going to talk about the comparative analysis of untouchable and gypsy goddesses, which is written by two different writers. Untouchable is written by Mulkraj Anand, pre-independence time, and Gypsy Goddess is written by Veena Kandasamy, which is written in 2014. Is both novel are dealing with the same issues and same concept, Dalit literature. So now I am started with this is points to ponder. This is my abstract. Introduction. According to Collins Dictionary, Dalit means member of lowest class in India, whom those four main castes were formally forbidden to touch. There were formerly called Dalits, offensive or untouchable. Historically, the word Dalit was chosen by some members of caste community of untouchable within social and political contexts of equality, justice, and empowerment. As there is the Dalit literature, there is trauma of untouchability also there. About Dalit literature, according to Pradeep Kumar Sharma, Dalit literature works as a catalyst for Dalit politics. Tulsi Ram, author of Dalit autobiography, argues that the literature of class and community in any societies grows in direct proportion to their political representation or dominion. This is historical fact that reflected in much of world history in the context of Varna Vyavastha, which represent the class premise of an Indian society. Thus, the history of Indian society revolves around the Varna system. This is quoted in Valmiki. The trauma of untouchability, as the both novel mainly focus on trauma of untouchability. So, what is it? Much of Dalit literature revolves around the question of caste discrimination and untouchability. Untouchability becomes the central trope of this literature. The practice of untouchability may well remain unintelligible to the victims, and one may add provocative even the perpetrator. As per Article 17 of Indian Constitution, untouchability is abolished and its practice in any form is forbidden. The enforcement of any disability arising out of untouchability shall be an offence punishable in accordance with the law. What is comparative study? Comparative is a concept that derives from the verb to compare. Comparative study analyzes and compares two or more objects or ideas. Comparative studies are the studies to demonstrate ability to examine, compare, contrast subject or ideas. Comparative studies shows how the two subjects are similar or shows how two subjects are different. When the practice of comparative study began is a matter of debate. What is the importance of why comparative studies are so important? According to Anderson's research, comparative study can take many forms. Two important key factors are space and time. Cross-national comparisons are by far most common, although comparison within countries contrasting different areas, cultures, and government also subsist and are very constructive. The comparative studies also involves comparing different time frames. Comparative studies helps the researcher to escape from the initial level of exploratory case studies to a more advanced level of general theoretical models, invariants such as causality or evolution. Some similar aspects of both the novel, caste-based discrimination. In the untouchable, there is a caste-based discrimination. There is one protagonist, Baka, who was suffered from this caste-based discrimination. In the Gypsy Goddess, there is a female protagonist whose name was Kali. She is also suffered from the caste-based discrimination. Education.
Untouchable depicts the experience of Baka who desires education but is denied it because of his caste. Gypsy Goddess depicts the experience of Kali who uses education as a way to challenge the social and economical structure that oppress her community. Poverty. Both novel has main theme is poverty. Untouchable shows that poverty is a product of a caste system, while Gypsy Goddess shows how poverty is a result of both caste and economic factors. Labor and work. Both novel are mainly focuses on the labor and work as the in Untouchable, the protagonist Baka is a sweeper, and in second novel, Gypsy Goddess, the protagonist Kali is an agriculture farmer who was protagonist has similar in the work. Untouchable Baka's family is employed as sweepers and job is considered low caste and demanding. In Gypsy Goddess, the Dalits are employed in menial jobs and face exploitation and discrimination. Some different aspects of this novel, historical difference, both novels are set in the different time. There is a historical, so there is a historical difference that in the one novel Untouchable is written in 1935, so obviously there is a Gandhian philosophy at a time when the Indian freedom struggle was gaining monumentum. There is style and structure difference, then female representation and conclusion. So to conclude, it can be said that the Dalits are suffering today time also and in pre-independence time also. These are my work citation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. At the end, I request all presenters to collect their certificates from our dignitary chairperson, Dr. Hasmukh Patel. Afterwards, I kindly request you all to assemble at the New Court Hall Administrative Building. In closing, I would like to call our Honorable Chairperson, Dr. Hasmukh Patel, to give the final touch to our fruitful session and to distribute certificates. Please, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is very difficult for a teacher to sit here and listen. And I almost listened to 12 presentations. So, there are multiple or variety of subjects covered here. Starting from translation studies, fairy tales, visual analysis, feminism, Canadian studies, Dalit literature in the end. The participants in this class are almost from all over Gujarat. From Gujarat University, South Gujarat University, Kutch University, Junagadh Bhakti Kavi Narsingh Mehta University, and of course, MKBU. Now, what do we mean by paper presentation? There is a difference between paper presentations and PowerPoint presentations. You are supposed to present your paper Your focus should be on your paper, not presentation, PowerPoint presentation. What I found here, there are so many errors in the title itself. Title, each word is capital, except prepositions, articles, etc. Even refer to the book you have cited, the title of the book and what you have written, the name of the book. So punctuation must be there. And I don't find it strictly adhered to the rules. There are rules of PPT. And one such rule is rule of 7. There must be 7 points in one PPT, in one slide. There must be 7 points. Each points have maximum 7 words. Here, from there, I can't read the whole paragraph you are showing here. And there must be 7 slides, maximum. This is called rule of 7. I know after COVID, this might be the first in-presence seminar. Up till now, you must have gone through virtual mode. But you have to learn something. You have to start from now onwards. One more thing, wherever you go, you will find only 10 minutes maximum, minimum 5 minutes to present your paper. Minimum 5 minutes, maximum 10 minutes. Here you are allowed up to 10 minutes. So what you have to do, you have to prepare 10 minutes version, 5 minutes version, 7 minutes version of your presentation, of your paper. Before attending any seminar, you have to prepare 3 or 4 multiple versions of your paper, starting from 5 minutes. You might not get enough time at that time of presentation, and you are spending whole day here for your 5 minutes. So you have to cover your start to end topic, and for that you need to prepare at least 3 versions of your research paper or your presentation. So whatever opportunity you will get, 5 minutes opportunity, continue with 5-minute paper. 10 minutes, continue with 10 minutes paper. One more thing, only one participants read quotations in proper manner. I quote, I unquote. When you are reading any quotations, you have to start with I quote and you have to complete with I unquote. This is the proper presentation. At least while referring to quotations, you have to maintain that decorum. Your paper must be in sequence. First, you have to explain the theoretical aspects of your title. You have to give supplement, theories, theoretical supplements or critical supplements from various critics. This will be the starting point of your presentation or your research paper, supported by your text. You have to give examples from your text, various texts or whatever you have taken in your paper, and then conclusion. Only 3 parts. You cover everything. You want to put everything in your paper. No, you are just dealing with one aspect at a time in a paper. So your paper must be discussing or expressing only single point. I congratulate all the participants who have tried their best. At least they have got the opportunity to stand here and deliver something. It will help you a lot. In future, it will help you a lot. I witnessed so many students during an interview, they even can't spell a few sentences while facing an interview. Just completed recruitment of Adhyapak Sahayak. I have witnessed many English students, but you are, in that case, you are much better than them. So try next time, whenever you got opportunity, present yourself. Your paper must be like you. We are unique. So our paper must be unique. Okay? Once again, I congratulate all of you. And madam, shall we distribute? I will. Vishal Kumar A. Joshi. Madam, please sit down. Bulao. Couple of minutes. Any question? We will cover it up till now when we finish our administrative work. Vishal Kumar.
Thank you, sir.
Khushbu Rathod. Jigar Makwana. Mittal Gaur. Mehta Kuldeep. Astha. Khushbu Chotalia. Dhvani Rajyaguru. Dear participants, now you will have to collect from the ceremony. Yeah, both of you. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Shall we complete?
I would like to all participants, they can join Google album that is shared in the seminar group, so you can get photos that we have clicked in this classroom. Please kindly join this Google album photo. Thank you.
We already joined, but our group photos are not yet shared.
Yes, but we are sharing. Okay, nice. Thank you very much to all.